My name is Christian Quesnel. I'm the illustrator of A Train in the Night, and you're listening True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Christian Quesnel about A Train in the Night. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. If you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/truenorthcountrycomics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Christian is the author and illustrator of several award-winning comic books, including Cœur d'Aiguille, Ludwig, Félix Leclerc, L'Alouette en Liberté, and Vous avez détruit la beauté du monde, which won the Grand Prix de la Ville de Québec in 2021. In the fall 2008, he became the first comic strip artist to win the Prix à la création artistique from Conseil des Arts et des Lettres du Québec, CALQ, for his body of work. He holds a master's degree in museology and arts practices from the University of Quebec in Ottawa in Gatineau, where he is currently a doctoral student. With writer Anne-Marie Saint-Cyny, he illustrated A Train in the Night from Between the Lines books, selected by CBC Books as one of the 20 Canadian books we can't wait to read November. A Train in the Night tells the story of a summer night in 2013, when a runaway train loaded with explosive oil derailed in the small town of Lac-Mégantic, Quebec. One of the deadliest rail disasters in Canadian history, Lac-Mégantic stands as a haunting narrative of how the powerful profit from collective tragedy. In this vivid, full-color work of graphic non-fiction, award-winning author Anne-Marie and Christian trace the path of the locomotive from the scene of the crime all the way back to cowboy producers of Dakota Black Gold, Wall Street investors, and politicians in the pocket of the billion-dollar oil and gas industry. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Christian Quesnel about A Train in the Night. So, Christian Quesnel, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
It's my pleasure.
I appreciate your time. Before we get started with all the questions, I want to ask you right off the bat, what was the first comic book that you read?
Oh my God, it's a long time ago. It was in the 70s, and it was called Goldorak. It's anime from Japan, but was adapted by French publisher. So I learned to read like this,
Ah, very good, very good. Yeah, I don't know if you remember this TV show, Albator.
Yeah, I know that. It's Goldorak was in English. It's Grandizer. It's the third part of a trilogy by Go Nagai, who made Mazinger Z, and Devilman.
Ah, very good. There you go. Yeah, so I actually have the videos. I remember growing up watching that too. So interesting stuff. So very good stuff when we're growing up as youngsters. But who or what inspires you to create today?
It's not only cartoonists. I'm very curious, and some visual artists interest me, and different ways to tell sequential art. I'm always looking for a different way to tell stories with images. I don't have a specific name. Maybe Enki Bilal when I was younger, but now, I do my own way.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're here talking about your latest graphic novel called A Train in the Night, written by Anne-Marie Saint-Cyny. And I want to ask you about the story. Maybe you could summarize it for me and what inspired you to illustrate it.
It's Anne-Marie she wrote an essay. She was looking for somebody to draw a comic about her story. And she looked for a drawer for 6 months or a year. And she found me in a bookstore in Montreal. It's called Le Port de Tête. She saw some of my books, and she told to herself, oh, it's that guy. she wanted to make, very human interest around Mégantic, because her essay that she published in Éco-Société a few years ago, it was very technical. But at that time with the comics, she wanted to make, a book very sensitive. She was looking for the good illustrator to make it. She met me in a book fair, and she just asked me, "Can you make, that story?" I knew like everybody, about Mégantic, but I didn't know how catastrophic it was at that time. So I asked her, "Am I free to do what I want? And do you have a good publisher?" She told me yes to both of these questions, so I just agreed to work with her. Start, 6 months after that, we were working on that book. Yeah.
Ah, very good. How was the collaboration process? I know that she originally wrote the essay. She just give you the book and say, "Here, do whatever you want," or did you work back and forth with ideas as you went along in the process?
She gave me the essay. I read it. She never wrote scenario for a comic. So I asked her, just write what you want on spread pages, And she just told me that she wrote all the extraction of the gas from North Dakota and that kind of stuff. And after that, I just decided to write the story with my drawings, directly with drawings. And after that, she put back her text. So it's very narration with images. I did first. With subjects, she asked me to illustrate, but after that, she just put, like I told, her text on my images, and the comics. It's what you see now.
Okay, very good. I want to switch gears and talk a bit about the tools used to create your art. Can you walk me through the process of how you create art?
Yeah, I work on console cartridge, and my drawing table is inclined, and I'm working with watercolor. It's all done by my hand. It's not computer. I make separate images, and I put it together to make all the boards for the comics. And sometimes I work very small with Photoshop after that, to put some more effects or filters. It's artistic, it's painting. I'm trying to make comics that it's not, the comic style, like people say. Is it existing comic style? I don't know. But in the head of the people, when they think comics, they have a style in their head. But me, I'm just trying to make painting in comics.
Because of the serious nature of this subject, you didn't want to look too cute in quotation marks, right? You wanted to make it look as real as possible.
Yeah, and the people was confident with me. They gave me some documents of their daughters who died in that accident. I'm thinking about Jean Clouzio, who trust me and who decided to open his heart. I have to work with that kind of material, who is very sensitive, and you have to respect the dignity of the people. It's a sharp line, to work with. And for me, it was like a mission, to respect the survivors and the family of the victims. Yeah.
I want to ask you about something you did recently. You attended Salon de Livre in Rimouski. I want to ask you, what was that event like for you?
Oh my God, I was invited by them. It was crazy because, my last book, it's not Mégantic, my last book. My last book, it's a Lovecraft story about Quebec City. Because H.P. Lovecraft visited Quebec City 3 times in the 30s. He wrote some touristic guide and historic guide also for Quebec and New France. And I just made an adaptation of that in fantastic ways. It's like a chronic about New France history. It was completely crazy since September 1st here in Quebec, and They, my the media really did a great job about my work. So my book was popular, and people were very enthusiastic about
Ah,
it.
very good. And you
So
did a session about the book at this Salon de Livre?
I did two panels, one for this book, and I did another book. I'm working too much. I did another book about the five best metal bands in Quebec. The two panels were about these two books, yeah. But the signatures, it's I was supposed to have 3 hours of signatures, just for example, Saturday, and it was a long 6 hours long
Wow.
signatures, session. So it was exhausting. Yeah.
But good though. You know that people are reading your books and they like it.
Yeah, it's amazing. People are very curious to see new kinds of aesthetic in comics. I'm very lucky to.
Ah, yes.
I'm very lucky, but
Good.
some people came to buy Megantic also, in French,
Mm-hmm.
because it did a lot of noise. The media talk about Megantic a lot
Yes.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's worthy of discussion, that's for sure. I've been to the Montreal Comic Arts Festival, a great event. I'm wondering, how would you compare the two, Salon de Livre to Montreal Comic Arts Festival?
The people who are coming in book fair in Saint-Livre in Montreal or in Rimouski, it's people, families, and it's the people like books, and they just find your books, and because they walk in the alley and they see their books, and they're very curious, and they come to see you and maybe buy it. But in a comic book, the people know exactly what they want, and they just come directly to your stand. They ask
Hmm.
for your books. They know what they do in
Right.
comic book fest. Yeah,
Is Salon de Livre, it's not just comic books, right? It's all sorts of fiction, nonfiction, that type of thing.
exactly. Yeah, in comic fest, it's I don't know to say connaisseur. They're very know. The people are
Very aware, they're big fans of the comic book, the bande dessinée.
exactly.
Ah. Yeah, very good. I'm looking forward to Montreal Comic Arts Festival next year. It's a great event. It would be nice to see Salon de Livre, but Montreal Comics Arts Festival being out on Rue Saint Denis was very enjoyable, and I'm looking forward
Oh,
to
yeah.
it next year.
I really enjoyed to be there. It was
Yeah.
after the pandemic period that it was crazy. It was a big party,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
every comic book artist I know who was there it was heaven.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. No, I agree. I agree with you. So you've gone to Salon de Livre. You're going to go back there at the end of the month. Wondering how else will you be promoting this book and your other books this year? Will you be attending any other conventions or festivals?
I'm supposed to go to Angoulême still this year. I have the Comic Fest of Gatineau, who is
Hmm.
coming in December. I have the book fair in Montreal, and after that in January, I'll be in Angoulême in France. And did you know that we won a FOV in Angoulême last year?
Congratulations. That's great news.
Mégantic won a FOV. It's an eco FOV.
Very
I think
good.
between the lines are not promoting that, but it's like winning an Oscar, I think.
Oh, yes. Very prestigious.
Yeah, this year I'm going back to promote, of course, Mégantic, but also La Cité Oblique, the book with Lovecraft that
Hmm.
I told you. And after that, I'm supposed to be in Quebec City for the book fair there and the Comic Fest. And it's in the same event in Quebec City. If you have the chance to go there, the Comic Fest and the book fair, it's in the same place. The best of both.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking at your bio. I know we're running out of time here, but I noticed you have a master's degree in something called museology. I know you don't want to spend too much time on it, but maybe just very briefly, can you talk about that? What that's all about?
Yeah, it's museology and art practicing. It's for you have a designer, you have a visual artist, and you have comic book artists. It's the only place it's in the Université du Québec en Outaouais. It's in Gatineau, And I think it's 22 years now. They're teaching comics there in French. And after that, they just opened the master degree, and now we have PhD there.
Wow.
So we can study, comics, and at the university. I'm teaching for the young student now, and with my master degree.
Wow, that's tremendous.
Yeah, it's very good because when you're working on a comic project, you work and you have schedule, you have calendar, and at the university you can just take your time to understand your medium. That's what I like to do at the university. Now I'm doing a PhD degree, so it's fascinating. The comics is it's not as study that it must be, because it's only at the end of the 60s the people start to study comics. There's a lot of things to experiment to learn about it.
This is such a change because I remember when I was growing up, people would say, "Oh, don't read comic books. That's for kids. It's going to rot your mind. We'll throw them out." And yet here you are with a PhD, and it's being studied in universities. This is just mind blowing. So good for you. Good for
I
you.
think that's where we are now. There's no wall anymore. I think it's finished that period. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So we've talked about A Train in the Night, and you've got some other projects. I'm wondering, do you have anything else upcoming that you can talk about? Any other books that you're working on?
I'm working on a book. It's called Dédé. It's about Dédé Fortin, who was a composer and a singer of band, the most famous band in Quebec in the 90s. It was called Les Colocs. Dédé Fortin died very dramatically. He committed suicide with some kind. It's not an harakiri, but it's the same way. He's very famous still today. My daughters are 16 and 18, and they know very well Les Colocs and Dédé Fortin. So I'm working on it. I think it will be coming out next year, but I think the English reader, it doesn't mean nothing, but for the Quebec people, it's like Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. Yeah, it's the same way. And in April, I'm gonna have a new book in French, both in English. It's called The Shroud of Turin. It's Advocatus Diaboli. You know the Shroud of Turin?
Absolutely, a very famous topic for sure.
Yeah, and it's my master degree project was about the Shroud of Turin, and one of the character was a knight from the medieval time, a French knight, and the other was known as the first owner of the Shroud of Turin. He died in, I think, 1256. And the other one is Ray Rogers, who was chemist in south of the United States, in Los Alamos, who studied the shroud in the 70s. My project was to compress time, so I need very big gap of time between images to experiment what I wanted to do. So, in one image, you're traveling 700 years. So I must show you that because it's hard to explain in French, so it's in English. It's more hard again. It's harder.
Well, it sounds fascinating, that's for sure. Good project, for sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've got a lot on the go. Is there a website that you recommend where people go to find out about your current and your future projects?
They can go to my Facebook under my name. And I have a website on my name.com, christianquesnel.com, so they can see what I do. But Facebook is the best, and Instagram also.
Very good. Well, Christian, those are all the questions I have for you, but is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Maybe I forgot to say about the publisher of Advocatus Diaboli in English. It's Soaring Penguin Press. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, it's very familiar, yes.
Yeah, it's John Anderson that I've met in London, UK. My English is getting better now at the end of the interview.
That's very good. Now, is he based on the west coast of Canada?
It's based in UK, and John is from London, Ontario.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he was. I've met him in London because I did residency in London a couple of years ago, and I've met John there, John Anderson. But now I think he's moved back to Canada, but his publishing house is still in UK.
Thanks to Christian for the chat. You can discover more about Christian on Instagram at Christian_Quesnel. That's CHRISTIAN_QUESNEL. And online at ChristianQuesnel.com. You can discover more about A Train in the Night at BTLBooks.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Tumblr at True North Country Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2022.